This is Tony Whatley. I am a results leader, and you are here with us today with Jonathan Rivera, and we're going to rock these two mics and bring you some awesome information today.
You're listening to ResultsLeader.fm. Being a thought leader is easy. Getting results is hard. This show is for the results leader who lives and dies by their results. Here is your host and Chief Results Leader, Jonathan Rivera.
What is up, brother?
What's going on, Jonathan, man? Thank you for this opportunity. I look forward to getting to know you a little bit better and maybe giving some value to your audience as well.
He's playing the maybe card. That's cute. I love it. I love the humble maybe brings some value. There's no doubt that if you're here on a live call, it's nothing but value. So are you ready to jump into this thing?
Absolutely, man. Shock me. Give me something to chew on here.
Oh, man. He wants to be shocked. All right. This is a big one. We want to deliver a quick win for our listeners, so I'm counting on you here. What book or books have you given most as a gift?
I would say my number one book that I recommend, other than my book, of course, because I got to have that bias, is How to Win Friends and Influence Other People by Dale Carnegie. It's a classic book, but honestly, I think that book should be recommended reading for even people in junior high, because I didn't read that until I was in my late 30s. And I think the book was written, if I'm not mistaken, sometime in the 1930s or 1940s. It's been around a while. So yeah, it teaches you how to be a bit more effective communicator, how to be more interesting, how to be more intriguing, and how to, really influence people. So it's a very important skill set that a lot of people, unfortunately, are lacking, but they don't have the awareness that they're lacking that.
That is a classic. And I'm glad you reminded me. I'm just finishing Think and Grow Rich. It's time to go back into that one as well. So now let's have some fun. One of our favorite topics. Maybe we have a love-hate relationship as entrepreneurs. Failure is part of the grind that we deal with every day. And I'd like you to share a story with us of how an apparent failure set you up for later success.
I don't really dwell on a lot of failures. I think about that. We all fail on our way up, but it's part of the process. And I think that unfortunately, too many people dwell on those failures and they let their past failures define them. But here's an example. I've started 9 different companies. 3 of them did exceptionally well. So even then, it's a 30% batting average. It's really on par with the Hall of Fame Major League Baseball players. The best batters of all time still hit around 30%. So you got to realize that 7 out of 10 times they're getting to the plate, they're not even making it to first base. So I think a lot of times people think they want to start a business, that they got to hit the grand slam on the first swing and then everything's going to be rosy. And yeah, there are some good hero stories out there like that, but it's not realistic. So the thing that you need to understand is the things that you fail at, or even the things that you do second place, which can still be exceptional, nobody's going to remember anyways. So don't let it define you. I mean, to give you an example, the company that I built had 300,000 registered members. Huge by many standards. We were number one General Motors performance website on the internet. Still to this day, even after selling it in 2007, it's still the number one General Motors performance community on the internet. But I had a second place, one that was nearly that size, called performancetrucks.net. That one grew to 280,000 registered members. So they're really close in size, but I'm only known for the one that was doing the better one. So people don't even realize I started the second site. See what I mean? So nobody really remembers your second best or your failures.
I dig it, man. So let's talk about investments. And what I'd like to know is, when you're thinking back over your career, over your successes, what would you say is the best investment that you've made?
I would say that I started too late at this regard, but for me, it was public speaking training. I think that I was always had a little confidence just to be able to stand in front of people and occasionally say a few words. I was working middle management in Fortune 100 companies. I've given thousands of slideshow presentations, project kickoff meetings. I've had crews of 100 people on my team, and I was okay speaking in front of them, but I always thought that I had public speaking skills, so therefore I didn't need to train in that skill set because I had that occasional courage to say something in front of people. And then when I joined Toastmasters about 4 years ago, in my mid-40s, I realized that I didn't know anything about public speaking. And I realized that having the occasional courage to say things in front of people has nothing to do with the skill set of being a public speaker or effective communicator or someone who can influence things with their words. Had a lot of bad habits, had a lot of distracting things that I used to say, the ums and the uhs and the things like that, just out of focus. And what happens is if you speak like that, you usually don't have the awareness that you speak like that. And everyone that's listening to them, you sound like you're unpolished, you sound like you're unprepared, or maybe you're not as good as what you think that you're at. So you got to understand that unless you've had some actual specific training in public speaking from a coach or joining a Toastmasters or something like that, you're actually not as good as you think you are. And here's the ego bust for all you managers and business owners out there that think that you have the skills. You got to realize that the audience that you're speaking to is a captive audience, because if you're the boss or the supervisor, they're not going to get up and go take a piss break while you're speaking. They're not going to pull out their phone and start surfing Instagram while you're speaking. So I hope that hits you a little bit, because you're only speaking to a captive audience. And that's not the same as trying to influence thousands of people in an audience who don't know you.
So I'm digging this, and I'm curious. You said you went to Toastmasters, but you've also done hundreds of podcast episodes. You've done hundreds of interviews. Were you doing that work before you did the Toastmasters? And did you also not just take Toastmasters? Have you had other coaching and other help in public speaking?
No, absolutely. I avoided being in front of cameras. I avoided being on stage. I had stage fright. I actually realized I had stage fright around age 43. Because again, I thought I had that public speaking skill because of ego, but I actually was, the way I discovered it, this is a good story for your listeners. I was actually at a oil and gas convention. I was sitting at a VIP table near the front of the stage, and there's 1,000 people in this convention hall. And the gentleman on stage asked for some feedback to a question that he had. I raised my hand. The guy called on me first. I was like, crap. And I started thinking like, man, there all these people raise their hand. And why does he call on me first? But, he was within earshot. He was literally 10 feet away from me. So I started to blurt out the answer from my seated position. And he's like, hey, hold up. Let's get this gentleman a microphone so everybody in the room can hear his response. And I could still feel the body core temperature starting to rise at that point, anticipating the microphone, which seemed to be on the other side of the room. This little old lady walking it over is really slow. Maybe it wasn't as slow as I remember, but it felt like an eternity before it got to me. And I just started to feel like the physiological fear, the throat, the cotton mouth, thank God I was wearing a sports jacket, because it felt like the sweat was coming, or the moisture was coming out of my mouth and starting to relocate to my armpits. And you started really feeling this fear. And then he's like, go ahead and stand up. And then the microphone gets there, and I take it with my sweaty, cold hand, and I had a trembling voice that only I knew, because nobody in the room knew me. But I gave him a response. It was a good response. Everybody applauded. I sat back down, and I was like, what the hell just happened? I thought I was good at public speaking. Like, what is that? Like, I've never experienced that before. And then I had the people at the table with me going, oh, that was a great answer. And they were like clapping, and I couldn't even hear it. I was almost blacking out. I was like, I can't even hear these people, but I'm just nodding. And I remember having those stupid cloth napkins on the table, and I'm trying to wipe my sweat off of my face, and it's just like smearing around, because those things don't absorb worth of crap. And so I realized in that moment, I was like, damn, I actually have stage fright, because that's exactly what it was. Because I realized I was standing in front of 1,000 people that I didn't know, because it's a different industry that I'm normally in. It was a natural gas convention. I was from the offshore, oil and gas construction division. So yeah, dude, I realized that, and I said, man, I need to go take care of that. I need to figure that out. What do I need to do to get over that? Most people would run from those kind of fears, or just say, hey, I'm never going to sit in the front again. I'm never going to raise my hand again. I'm never going to put myself in a situation where I can get called on to speak again. Like, no, I'm actually the daredevil type personality. And I was actually kind of smiling inside. And I said, you know what? That's a new fear. Let me go figure out how to get over that.
You ran towards a fire. You're one of those guys, eh?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes.
So yeah, I did not take any interviews and things. I did not like being that. It's just all the interviews and things like that came as a result of me preparing and doing what I do now.
So let's look back over the last 5 years. What new belief, behavior, or habit has most improved your life?
Yeah, the last 5 years, that's actually a pretty good calendar. In 2015, I had a near-death experience racing cars. And really, that is what changed the entire trajectory of what I'm doing today. Because prior to that, I was a successful business owner in the performance automotive market. I had a very successful multiple six-figure salary working in middle management and oil and gas project management engineering. And I had a very comfortable life. But after that accident, I realized that the only people that were benefiting from my advice and my mentorship were people within my close proximity. So friends, former employees, family, they were getting the benefits of my experience, my business skills, my encouragement, all the mindset things I was teaching them. And it's because I had a comfortable life and I had a busy job and I had businesses that I ran. So I understood that I didn't need to put myself out there is the way I thought about that. I always wanted to, but I knew that I didn't need to. And I just kind of just stayed in that comfortable, high income earning level. And I was in a car accident racing at the track. And in that moment, I thought I was going to die. And after that moment, I had this profound realization that what if I would have died? I'm literally sitting in the back of the ambulance looking at this wreckage and wondering to myself, how would I have been remembered had I died just now? And it would have been financially successful, nice guy, gone too soon, right? And I said, well, that sounds okay, but that's very superficial. And what it really told me is that I wasn't making enough impact in this world. And I didn't even know what that meant. I just knew that I needed to go create more impact than just waiting for something to happen and waiting that time or thinking that time is always guaranteed. It's always going to show up for you. It just doesn't work that way. And it could have all been gone in that moment. And so I decided at that moment, it's like, I need to go do something more impactful. And I didn't know what that meant at the time.
Racing cars? What kind of cars were you racing?
Yeah, I actually am a car fanatic. So I've been road racing and drag racing since I was 18, really. And this particular accident was in a 1,000 horsepower Dodge Viper twin turbo car. And we were trying to set a new national record at the drag strip. And about the top of third gear at 130 miles per hour, something in the right rear suspension came loose. And the car was steering with the back wheels, essentially. And it put me into a wall, the left wall. I hit the concrete barrier at 130 miles per hour and just destroyed the car. And it was crashed in up to the windshield. And it was just a mess. I mean, there was literally wheels off the car and every panel of this car was damaged. And, looking at the wreckage, it kind of makes you think about why did I survive and what's going on with that. I didn't have any major injuries. I was sore for a couple of weeks. But the strangest thing about that, Jonathan, is as I was approaching the wall, I did a quick mental calculation. It's like I got bad odds. I'm about to hit a concrete wall at 130 miles per hour and a two-door sports car that's not really intended for racing as a street car with a lot of power. It didn't have like a full cage and all these safety equipment that you would think about in a race car. And so I actually thought in that moment, I said, well, here I go. And I was very peaceful in that moment. I didn't have any fears. I didn't see my life flash before my eyes. I was just very peaceful. And it felt like an eternity before that impact, but I was just really calm. I mean, I was steering straight. The car was deciding it's going hard left. I had no control over the outcome. It's just going to be what it is. And, and I just remember just the impact and the airbags deploying and the lights flickering on and off and all the noise, just terrible noise as the car's being torn to pieces. And I just remember just being awake and just feeling like, hey, I need to get out of this car. Like, don't pass out, stay awake, because I was afraid of fire. Usually people die in fire from all the spilled fluids that come out of the car versus the impact. So I just realized I didn't know if I was injured or not. I just remember being conscious and thinking like, stay awake, get out of the car. And so I was very calm during that entire process. And people asked me, how come you were calm? I didn't have the adrenaline shakes. I didn't have an elevated heart rate. I was very clear and I didn't have a concussion. But I was just, those questions were going through my mind. What if I would have died? Why am I still here? How do I have been remembered? And am I creating enough impact in this world? And when those kind of deep questions go through your mind and realizing you could have been gone in snap of a second there, you realize like, I need to push aside my fears and go live with more purpose. And that's the question. That's the answer to the question you asked. Like, how does it change my life? Well, I left that corporate career within the same month. And basically, I just said, the next 2 years, I'm going to figure out what purpose means to me. And then I started to pursue that in 2017. It took me 2 years to finally have the courage to go do what I'm doing now.
How did you figure that out? Because this is a common problem everywhere. You know this, I know this. People are living reactive lives. They're not living a life of purpose. So what are some tips that you might be able to give us to say, hey, here's how I found my purpose?
I guess I would start that off by explaining how most people think about purpose. Most people, when you ask them what their purpose is, they say something very honorable, but very small. They say something like, my purpose is to provide for my family, or just make my family this. It's always something family unit. And that's honorable, but it's also small, because I truly believe that each and every one of you that's listening to this or watching this has a much greater purpose than your family. I see that your family is your duty, not your purpose. Like if you're a parent or a guardian, or maybe you're running some kind of organization, if you're in a leadership capacity, that's not your purpose, that's your duty. Your purpose is much bigger. Your purpose impacts hundreds of people or thousands of people or millions or even billions of people. That's what your true purpose is. But when you're really comfortable and you have a comfortable income and a comfortable life, and you surround yourself with a bunch of people who think equally small and just bounce back this volley, yeah, it's all about family. Yeah, I'm here for my family. Like if you surround yourself with people that think that small, you're going to think like that. You can't avoid that. You're surrounded by that. They're validating your purpose with their own weak purpose, right? So for me, I said, okay, if purpose to me, how do I define it? Is how do I impact the most people possible? How do I positively impact the lives of the most people possible? And what does that mean? Does that mean I start a nonprofit or go on a campaign and help people do something or solve one problem? Like these are all great answers, but everybody has a different answer. And for me, I just really started to lean back on what are the people always coming to me for advice on? What are the people that are always asking me like, oh, you should be doing this, or they giving me good feedback and things like that over the years? And pay attention to that, people, because if someone keeps coming to you for advice, and you start to have this thing where they're always asking you about this thing that you do or the thing that you know, that's a pretty good indicator that you position yourself as either an authority in that or someone that's demonstrated excellent results in that. So maybe that's an indicator that that's something that you should pursue or turn the knob up on and go all in on. Because for me, that was always business. So I was the kid that would go to the grocery store with my mom, and while she was shopping, I would read my car magazines because that's what I was fascinated with. But I always looked at the money magazines because I didn't have money. We grew up lower middle class. I didn't have any money. And I was like a kidpreneur that was mowing yards and walking dogs and washing cars and raking leaves and doing whatever I could to buy my video games and skateboard. So I started noticing in the corner of my eye these money magazines and business magazines. I was reading Fortune and Success and Entrepreneur as a kid. I get subscriptions. I was 12, 13 years old reading those. I didn't understand what they meant, but I knew that if I didn't have money and these things are talking about money and business, maybe I could figure it out. And so that's what I did. So I've always been interested in that. I never read those things and felt disgusted or felt like it was odd. I was curious. I was genuinely curious about that. So I started to realize how am I going to make the most impact? Well, I've been fascinated with cars and business, really those two things, for a very long time. So everybody knows about my cars and my car businesses and my car communities already. Let me go focus on teaching people how I was able to afford all those cars, or how to build businesses around these things, or how to build the communities that I built. And so I said, the best way I personally am going to impact the generational legacy of millions of people, and I say that with confidence, is going to teach them business principles and confidence, things that I have a lot of passion for, a lot of results in. And I said, I'm a community builder, so let me go build an entrepreneurship community. And that's what 365 Driven is.
Now, there's I knew I was going to end up taking detours with you. Why are you doing this to me? You're taking me off the script, man. What's your favorite car in your collection?
It's always going to be a 1969 Camaro. That was my very first car. I bought working at McDonald's and mowing yards for $1,400. My dad and I restored that when in high school. And I've had several of them since. A couple of them have been on covers of major magazines. So 1969, I've got a lot of fancy cars, but a 1969 Camaro in any form is always going to be my favorite car.
I'm with you too. I have a bunch of friends that are into the Ferraris and Porsches, and I just feel like I want a muscle car. I don't know what it is. I guess that's the way we grew up. So I'm going to take one more detour, and then I'm going to bring us back on track. And I'm very specifically zeroing in on this word that you've continued to use over and over. What does impact mean to you?
I think impact for me just means literally what it sounds like. It's what is the impact? How am I going to change people's lives? How am I going to make sure that my existence made their life better? And when you start to think about things about financial or entrepreneurship or the things that I teach, it's not only going to affect the individual that's learning, it's going to affect as a trickle down their entire family and generational. So if I can change their lives and give them a dose of freedom and understand that they have a lot more potential that I see within them, that they see for themselves, we help them unlock those kind of things. We start to guide them through the process of starting, scaling, or exiting their business. That's going to change their generational legacy. They're going to be the uncle or the grandfather that people admire and go, man, that person really changed our family tree. And, I've seen my dad do that within our family tree. And he was the one that moved us out of the lower level income areas that we could have grown up in. He moved us to a better school system just to make sure that my sister and I got a better education, even though that we couldn't afford to live in the average neighborhoods in these areas. He was the one that broke that branch and said, hey, we're going to go this way. And I'm not going to go back to my old hometown. I'm not going to put my kids through that same school system and things like that. So as parents and as guardians, we got to understand that we need to do things to improve the existence of our legacy, our future, I guess, people in our family that we haven't even, may not even exist right now. They can all be impacted by the things that you do today.
I'm digging it, man. And I am with you on that. By the way, we're getting kudos from Fallett and Breyer. What's up, fellas? I know you're there, but I'm kind of busy. So let's have a little bit of fun here. What are bad recommendations you hear in your area of expertise?
Bad recommendations. So yeah, this goes back to that period of 2015 to 17, where I was kind of on that sidelines watching and trying to figure out what I wanted to do. When you asked that question, this popped up in my mind. When we observe the personal development space or the coaching space, even over the past 10 years, I'll go back. I'd say that there's a lot of frauds out there. There's a lot of people doing fake things. A lot of people trying to teach things they have no experience in. There's a lot of people doing things that are unethical. You can tell which people really want the money versus want the result for their clients or their audience. And I didn't want to be associated with those people. And it's hard to tell because some of them are very polished and you can't tell which ones are the fakes and which ones are real until you start to do some due diligence and go down the Google trail and you realize like, oh, this person that wrote a New York Times bestselling book, which made him famous, didn't achieve crap before the book. So you realize that there's a lot of these false prophets out there. And the industry kind of me had probably a 60 to 70% negative factor versus the 30 to 40% that were legit, right? And that was one of the main reasons I didn't want to enter the space. And that's probably what kept me out of the game for at least that first year of thinking like, this is what I need to be doing. This is what I know I should be doing. I need to go prepare myself to become the right person to carry that message. I need to write the book. I need to launch podcasts. But I didn't want to be associated with the negative and the fake stereotypes of those people. The people, flexing on Instagram with their Lambo doors up and it's like leased to the hilt and they live in an apartment or they've got roommates. I mean, there's a lot of that going on out there. So honestly, dude, the best advice I say is go hire people that actually have achieved the things that you want to achieve and quit taking advice from people who haven't done the things that you want, because the fastest way to get results is to go hire those coaches and those experts that actually have achieved the things that you want or have demonstrated the results, repeatable results for their clients. But you got to avoid all the other people that aren't really doing anything or not delivering, because there's a lot of those out there. And the best way to do that is to talk to their current clients and also some of their past clients. Ask for referrals. Do your due diligence. Quit just falling for the one that's the best looking or has the best flex on Instagram, because 9 times out of 10, those people are all BS.
He just called out every Instagram influencer out there. I'm digging it, man. I'm digging it. And it leads perfectly into this next question. Why do results matter? All right, I know you were getting into that, and we were just about to get into my favorite part where we talk about results. But first, I want to ask you a question. Are you picking up what we're laying down on this show? Are you digging what we are sharing? If you are, why not make yourself a hero today and share this with somebody who can use it? Put this out on your social media channels. #ResultsLeaderFM. I'll be out there looking for you, and I'll make sure to boost it up too when I see you. Now that we've got that out of the way, let's jump back into the interview.
Results matter because there is nothing but results. There's nothing but results. Everything else is fluff. Everything else is cheerleading. It's all marketing. It's all positioning. And I get that those are things that are important to initiate the attention, perhaps. That's important for all business owners. But unless you have the results, what's the purpose? Why am I joining this program if I'm not going to go follow it through and actually execute the things that's going to create the change that I hired or paid for? Like, what does it matter? Like, to me, without results, like, nothing matters. And I think that with successful people, you got to realize that we're not thriving for motivation. I think a lot of times people are scrolling Instagram and looking at hashtags that make them feel good, and they're following people and listening to podcasts and books that make them feel good, and they want to get that motivation, and they feel rah, 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 and they feel charged up for maybe 30 minutes, and they go do something and they don't really do the right thing, and they don't get the results. They're focusing on these little minute details instead of the big movers that make real progress in what they want to create in their life. So you got all these people that's looking for motivation. But what they don't realize is successful people don't need motivation. Motivation is optional. It's nice when you have it, but it's optional, because successful people show up every damn day, whether they feel like it or not. It goes with fitness or not. I'll say that half the time I go to the gym every day, and half the time I don't want to go. I really don't feel like going. But here's the thing I had to think about is I've never left the gym in my entire life of working out since age 14. I've never left the gym one time having regret having been there that day. So if I know if I'm going to go to the gym, even if I don't feel like it, when I leave later on, I will not regret having gone. So I have to position myself for that rather than thinking I need to be motivated. Let me go, watch some Jocko videos or something to get pumped up for me to go. Like, I don't need that. And successful people do things without the motivation. They just do things because they only want the result.
Isn't that the other part, though, of what we talked about earlier? And I don't think I've ever heard anybody say it like that. Like, I'm like cheering for you right here. Successful people don't need motivation. We just go in, we do the work, thankless work. It doesn't matter. We show up. Isn't that, though, the other part of being intentional and having purpose?
I would say that the purpose part is a hard question to answer. I think a lot of times people focus on false purpose. They go back to the family thing. Well, hey, if I'm making a good living and I'm paying my bills and my kids can eat, like, I'm fulfilling my purpose. Like, no, you're fulfilling your duty. Again, if you ask most people straight up, you just walk up to somebody at a convention or people when there's talking, go, hey, what is your purpose? I will guarantee 9 times out of 10, they'll say, probably 99 times out of 100, probably even bigger number, right? Oh, I just want to provide for my family. Like, cool, bro. That's all you can do for the rest. That's the biggest impact you can make in this world, is providing for your family. So when they answer that question, it's almost like when someone says, "Hey, how are you doing?" and you go, "Oh, great." It's like it's a knee-jerk reaction. It's a programmed social response that we all carry. But we don't always mean that, because a lot of times when someone's like, "Hey, how you doing?" and you're like, "Oh, great," but you're thinking inside like, "I feel like shit today and I don't feel good and this is an awful day," but you'll say, "Hell, things are great." Or if I go up to a business owner and I say, "Hey man, how's business?" "Oh man, we're busier than ever. We're crushing it." And I know that 70% of businesses are struggling. So why does 100% of business owners always tell me they're crushing it and things are great? So we have these programmed responses like, "It's my family. I'm doing it for my family." That's a response that, if you hang out with other people that volley back and forth that average response, they're not used to being prodded a little bit deeper to go deeper on that response. You're supposed to say, "Hey, I'm just doing this for my family." And that's usually where the conversation is supposed to stop. Like, "Hey, don't ask me anymore because I've given you this honorable answer, and how dare you question my purpose now? Like, I've given you the answer that 99% of the people around me all give the same answer. So therefore, don't question my answer." But you ask me, if I say that, "Oh, that's your purpose?" And I think your family is your duty, isn't it? Like, that's something you should be doing and have the obligation to do no matter what. So what's your real purpose? And now they're like, I don't know, because you never really thought about it. Because when you create those false social programmed responses, you never force yourself into an awareness that there is a bigger purpose that's intended for you. And I hope that if you're watching this or listening, this is making you think a little bit deeper. What is your purpose? And it's a very hard question. You're not going to come up with it overnight, but look for the clues like we talked about earlier.
Not just the clues, though, because what you keep saying here is get around the right people who will challenge you, who will go deeper, who will ask you to get real, because that's where I figured it out too, is like getting in the room with people who were thinking much bigger than me. I realized that there was so much more possible. And I think that's what you're doing every single day, is putting these kinds of people together. So let's talk about the last 5 years. What new realization has helped you get better results for your clients?
Better results for the clients. I think to me, it's always the same thing. It's the fundamentals. My big word is consistency. I've got a bracelet that says consistency on it, right here. Consistency. And it's always a part of my message, having that discipline to show up every day. I mean, there's no surprise that my brand is called 365 Driven. It means showing up every day and putting in some kind of result. I'm not talking about the hustle and grind and all that crap and being sleep deprived and bragging about OT. And we joked about the Bubba thing on one of my episodes, but it's about just making some sort of progress every single day, no matter how small. I mean, most people are like, oh, I like to take the weekends off and do all that. Like, cool. Like, if you got kids and things like that, I get it. Get up at 5 a.m., spend the first 2 hours of the day before people wake up and do some things that are productive. Maybe read something, learn something, challenge yourself, challenge a perspective that you may have, gain some awareness, start to listen to people that actually have achieved the things that you want, push yourself a little further in the right direction. And most people don't do that. Most people, unfortunately, have not read any books since they got out of school. I mean, guys, you're out there 20, 30, 40 years and you haven't even cracked open a book. Literally, the smartest and the most intelligent perspectives and things you're going to learn are existing in books. And, for $10, $20, you can actually learn someone's entire lifetime of experience and knowledge in a few hours of just reading. It's incredible the opportunities people miss because they fall into that complacency trap. So, when you think about that, dude, you just gotta push yourself to be consistent. So the fundamentals, consistency, show up over time, because if you quit and you lose momentum, you got to restart again. See, even the people in the space, like the podcasting and the social media content that people want to build influencer, things like that, you see them go really hard for about 2 months and they feel like they're entitled to some kind of response, that they think that they're better than they are. They should be, I should have millions of followers, just show up because my videos are so good. Like they truly believe this kind of thing because they watch other people who have established audience by being consistent over time, and they see their results. So they think like, well, I'm better looking than that person, or I speak better than that person, or my content's just as good as theirs. How come they have the audience, but I don't? It's because those people just outworked you. They didn't make excuses. They didn't need motivation to fire up the camera. They wanted to share value with the audience instead of talking about themselves, right? And so consistency is the foundation of everything for me. And most people, unfortunately, look past consistency because it's such a fundamental word that they hear that their entire lives. So they assume that they've got that. Oh, I've got that. I've learned that since I was a kid. Show up consistently, work hard, I got that. But they don't. Because when we start to look at how they interact and the things that they do and what are the actual actions they're taking on a daily basis, they're not consistent at all. They know what that means, but they're not doing it because they're so focused on looking for the silver bullet and the magic potions and the next big thing and how to get rich quick and the next 10 steps and how you can be successful in 90 days. And they're buying all these bullshit programs, wasting a lot of times, always thinking that there's some new thing that they haven't discovered, or listening to that 10,000th podcast episode and reading the 100th book, but they're not taking any actions and they're not being consistent.
Get it, baby. What area of your business would you like better results, Tony?
I think I'm very happy where I'm at in my current business because I think about what is the lifestyle that I want to have versus the income or the revenue that I need to create. I think when I was in my 20s and 30s, I was so focused on making money and stacking money, I was willing to do things that I look back on now. I'm almost 49 for context. And I think about the things that I sacrificed, like being international working and not getting to see my son grow up a lot of times, and being gone sometimes 30 days working offshore at a time, and just not really being accessible to my friends and my relationships, and the times and the things the memories I missed out on because I was so focused on making money and I was really good at doing that. But nowadays I realize like there's a lot of times I could have just looked back and said, I didn't need all that. I was actually just as happy when I was broke as happy when I have money. A lot of people would consider me rich nowadays. I've always been happy. Regardless of the income I'm at. So how much is enough? And I get that there's always this stigma of like, oh, we got to go out there and crush it. And we got to do it. But guys, my coaching clients, they're 7 and 8 figure business owners who come to me because they're stressed out, their anxiety, they're just having bad relationships, their kids don't like them. They've got all these issues that are going on. They got troubled employees, bad culture in the workplace, the financial mess that's going on with the business. It's because they grew and they scaled their companies too fast because they were chasing a revenue number that they thought would validate their expertise as a business owner. You know, we see this on Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn. It's like, I'm a 7-figure business owner. I'm an 8-figure business. Like, does it matter if you're a $10 million company, but you're spending $9,999,000 to stay in business? Like, no, it's stupid. So quit being focused on revenue. Think about where you are happiness wise. And sometimes that means scaling down to have more time freedom, more location freedom, more family freedom, but you're still going to have a damn good life.
What results are you most proud of?
I would say that for me, most people would answer that as a personal level, like they would be proud of their personal results. But for me, the results are how I've been able to impact people in my circle of friends and people that formerly were staff members of my websites. I've helped 12 different people that were former staff members become multimillionaires over the last 20 years. Helped dozens of people start their businesses that were just within my space that said, hey, Tony, give us some advice here. What would you do here? What would you name your company? I've been giving this advice for 20 years. And I've seen the results of that time compound. And I've seen people build 7, 8, and 9-figure businesses just from helping them, guiding along and saying, this is the thing I would do. It was kind of like this MVP board of directors that was not paid to do those kind of things, but that's because I want other people to achieve things, right? So I'm actually very proud of the things that I've helped change those people's lives because of my knowledge and my love and attention for what I'm doing for them.
Beautiful, man. Any parting thoughts for the results leaders who may be listening to this later on?
I think for results leaders, the fastest way you're going to make true impact is going to be looking for the things that you're weak at and understanding that if you've got things that you need to improve on to become the better version of yourself, however you identify that as, whether that's becoming a more effective communicator, perhaps, or having the courage to use videos or get on stages, or maybe the level of fitness that you have. I want you to visualize the best version of yourself possible, however you define that, and then start to identify, like, where am I lacking in those areas? And then it's easy to start to look at the steps. What are the steps to require to become that? If you want to be someone that's on stages like I am now and be on videos or become fit, there's ways to get there. You're not going to have to do this alone. Go hire the people that can get you the results. Go hire those coaches that can train you. Go hire the fitness instructor that can get on your diet program and make sure your nutrition is in check and you're exercising the right way to get the results. But the thing is that you have to be willing to become the right person to create the impact. Not everyone out there is ready right now to become the impact maker, but they got to be willing to invest in themselves and the time and do the reps to become the right person to carry their message, to create that impact. So it's not always about based on what you know now or how you can do things now. It's who are you willing to become? And are you willing to go put in that work to become that?
Powerful. And I know that anybody who is hearing us, anybody who tuned in while we were live, is going to want more from you. Where can they go?
Yeah, I'd say that if you're a podcast listener, go check out my show. It's 365 Driven. It's available on all channels. But if you'd like to learn about my social media, my book, my mastermind groups, my entrepreneurship events, they're all on my website, 365driven.com.
Excellent. We will have links in the show notes. Of course, we'll link back to everything. Definitely recommend listening to the show. I got pumped up this morning on my morning walk listening to the show, and I had to send you a video. Bubba!
Don't be a Bubba. Don't be a
Bubba. So, Tony, dude, it's been a pleasure. I'm so thrilled that we got to connect, and I'm thrilled that we made it happen so quickly. And I'm grateful that you were able to share your mission here with us. Thank you for that. Thank you, results leaders, for tuning in. And as always, we will be back in your earbuds next time. That is a wrap for another edition of Results resultsleader.fm. If you are out there getting results for your clients and you want to be featured on the show, go to resultsleader.fm now and apply to be on the show. And if you love what you're hearing, share the show, give us a rating and review, do anything to help us get the message out there. Thought leadership is easy, but results leadership is hard. We'll catch you on the next one.
This program is brought to you by thepodcastfactory.com.